Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start with a story about a not-so-small petty revenge to warm you up. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Cheating ex, his side chick, and other shenanigans. I caught my boyfriend of over a year with another woman, who was a friend of mine. I'd introduced her to him, and I ended it, but had to see both of them regularly since we all worked together. 3 months later, he quit out of the blue. No 2-week notice, nothing, because he got another woman pregnant in another state, and she was about to give birth. He'd worked for the employer for 10+ years. My ex-friend tried to come cry to me about how he'd hurt her too. I guess she assumed that I wouldn't embarrass her in public. She was wrong. I chewed her butt in front of everyone in the break room and told her she got what she deserved. Oh, and the kid wasn't his. He quit his cushy job for nothing, and it left such a bad taste in the supervisor's mouth from the other a-hole things he'd done that when he tried to get his job back, the boss told him, "Don't call us, we'll call you." I didn't technically do crap, but God, after roughly 1 year of hell with them and the year of chaos afterwards, really slept a lot better at night. And our next story. Oh, so you've got strong political backers? You're still going down. Background. This story takes place in Asia, not the US or any other Western country. My wife, late 20s, is working in a newly set up government branch office of only 20 people, which by virtue of its nature requires a lot of interaction and support from high-ranking politicians and the grassroots. Most of her colleagues are thus seniors and retirees with a lot of clout in their respective communities and strongly recommended/backed by their area's sort of equivalent of a mayor to join the office. More background. When my wife first joined, there was this particular guy who we'll call Jack. Jack was in his 60s, coming out of retirement, and was charismatic as hell. He was the undeniable alpha male in the office and had the respect and support of almost all other colleagues, thanks to him generously buying everyone in his group lunch almost every day. The relatively younger, 30 to 40-year-old ladies even called him Papa Jack or some other endearing term. Even the boss gave him great leeway. Jack could tell off the boss during meetings, and the boss would just suck it up. Now at this point, all we knew is that Jack was charismatic AF, one of the pastors of a megachurch even, and had the support of a very high-ranking politician. In fact, Jack was apparently very rich and had no need to work this job, but was there due to politics. Also, why the boss, who had no political backing, gave him that much leeway. I was in between jobs at this time and helped my wife out at her office from time to time, cultivating a pretty good relationship with her boss. First time I was at her office, Jack came over with his posse, sized me up by asking lots of personal questions, and made some jokes about me. Immediately it rubbed me the wrong way, and he gave me the impression that he was an arrogant P. However, I gave him the benefit of the doubt as the other colleagues were quick to praise him despite his loud mouth. The first time I worked directly with him, however, shattered any illusions I had about his competency. This guy was horribly inept at his work and got away with it all the time. My wife even told me that she was unhappy about how he would make jokes about her or even poke her in the belly or arms and comment on her putting on weight. She, however, still gave him the benefit of doubt as she mentioned that he saw her as a daughter and perhaps being childish was just part of his joker attitude. The incident. Couple months later, it was Jack's birthday, and most of the office, except the boss, attended after work. My wife got him a gift, as did everyone else, and he thanked her by plying her with expensive wine. Now, my wife is not a good drinker, and everybody in the office knew it, but was still pressured into drinking. Towards the end of the party, he offered to drive my wife and some other colleagues staying nearby home. My wife agreed as it was in a group, and it was way too late or expensive to go by public transport, and her cell phone was dead. However, instead of dropping my wife off first, as her house was the nearest, he ended up dropping everyone else off first and then drove her to a somewhat deserted location instead of home. He then sexually harassed her, saying that he thought she was sexy, admitted to purposely plying her with alcohol, and that he really wanted to touch her. My wife was massively drunk, but thankfully fended off his advances and repeatedly asked to be driven home. Perhaps also driven by her latent unhappiness about the way he treats her at work, she reminded him of his religious work and his being a grandfather, such that he finally gave up and dropped her off somewhere not deserted, whereby she walked home and quickly called me. I rushed over and she related the whole incident, still tipsy AF, I called up her relatively good friend at work, whom I thought could be trustworthy, but the spineless fellow advised not to go against Jack and just let it go since nothing happened. Fine. Time to plot my revenge myself. The corporate compromise. The next day, I made a big show out of asking her boss out to discuss something. Jack was noticeably on leave, and the rest of the office was also acting oddly. I was surprised that her boss believed me right off the bat, since he said he had spotted Jack leering at young women all the time, and that Jack had a reputation for being a philanderer. Jack was apparently not independently rich, too. He was supported generously by his rich wife, who turned a blind eye to his side activities. Why? Because she was much younger than him, and he had supported her through college with his pay back then. Now that she's successful, she feels that she owes it to him. However, Boss Man was apparently scared of the political repercussions from taking action against Jack, but promised to keep an eye on him and let my wife telecommute to work instead. Still, Boss Man had to inform his boss as part of protocol, who totally lost his crap. As an ex-military guy and new to this job, this guy was hungry for blood and hadn't yelled at anyone in years, so Jack was basically called in and interrogated until he admitted to getting her drunk, but maintained that he only wanted to talk to her about the problems they were having at work with no sexual intention. With no evidence and having a crap ton of political pressure harping on this point, ex-military boss could do nothing about this guy either, so he said we either had to make a police report so that he could act or accept a half-butted private apology from Jack, restricted to only what he admitted to. No way in hell was I going to accept that. Ex-military boss came up with some other alternatives, such as transferring my wife out, but she did nothing wrong. But nothing was acceptable to me except totally neutering this guy, fire his butt, or destroy his life, such that he would have no way of preying on my wife or the other young women he worked with. Later, I would come to know that Jack had told everyone that my wife was trying to seduce him for his money, but he rejected her. He ruined her reputation to save himself, and the bosses couldn't do crap about it. Nobody sullies my wife's reputation and gets away with it. The Revenge Part 1. Social Isolation. I knew where my revenge would hit him the hardest, his pride. I countered, demanding that Jack make a public apology in the office for what had happened that night. As promised, he would not be obliged to apologize for anything he did not admit to, including sexual harassment. In fact, I told him that he could just apologize without any reason given. I didn't need one. Jack tried to weasel his way out of this, but even his backer couldn't deny such a simple, reasonable request, and apologize he did. Thanks to his own pre-poisoning of the well of public opinion, most of the office saw through his lies. Why would he be forced to apologize if he did nothing wrong? What was he even apologizing for? Why can't it be said outright? Immediately after, the office was split. Half sided with my wife, while half stuck with their beloved Papa Jack, who could do no wrong. The mutters and gossip against him grew steadily, though, as his background and past philandering reputation started leaking out. I might have been part of those leaks, who knows? In the end, the cognitive dissonance or their willingness to be associated with a pervert for free lunches lost out to public opinion. Soon, Jack found himself increasingly isolated and eating lunch with only his work partner. The alpha male was neutered. Nobody took his bragging seriously. He had no pack of fans anymore. Nobody was picking up the slack of his incompetent work except his partner, who was backed by the same politician. The Revenge Part 2. Spectacular career end. I spoke to Jack during one of his lonely lunches, telling him that he only had one choice: to resign quietly. I knew this would hurt Jack's pride the most, so Jack did not go quietly. He set about messing up the office, shredding important documents, damaging equipment, etc. I went straight to his partner and told him that there were documents missing, and having covered for him, he would be liable for any sabotage in the upcoming audit. His partner tried to pin it on me, but I'd already extracted and backed up the security tapes, showing Jack shredding the documents literally behind his partner's back. His partner, now burdened with Jack's mess and about to get audited, thanks to me whispering in Boss Man's ear, had to rat Jack out to the politician to save himself. The politician quickly distanced himself publicly from Jack and more than likely told him to hand in his resignation before the audit. Jack was now completely cut off. No job, no political backer, no friends at work. The only thing he had now was his wife, kids, and grassroots community reputation. Was I done? Not by a long shot. The Revenge Part 3. Stealing his wallet. I knew his wife would not care about Jack's philandering ways, and his kids probably already knew anyway. However, the wife would be concerned if he was spending her money all willy-nilly. I volunteered to send the usual office goodbye card to Jack, but mistakenly addressed it to his wife. Oops, careless me. Most colleagues added generic messages such as all the best to it, but I added an anonymous message telling him how we missed all the lavish meals and parties we had with him before his retirement and all the good times, while also stating how all the ladies missed their papa. Never heard any news about him for months, so I assumed the wife had ignored the message. Until yesterday. The Revenge, Part 4. Goodbye, reputation. Opened the papers to see that dear Papa Jack was in prison for a year due to some minor offense. Dug deeper and found out that Jack did indeed have his allowance cut by his wife. Unable to sustain his lavish lifestyle, he turned to crime. I found out from the grapevine that he'd actually done some pretty major stuff, but somehow managed to get it down to a minor offense barely footnoted in the papers. Perhaps by the politician not wanting to be associated negatively with a former right-hand person. Was I done? Yeah, I suppose this would do for now. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.